Here are the subtle tactics women employ to draw you into their perspective. As a man, it's crucial to understand that succumbing to these will diminish attraction. Firstly, they test your resilience. Women frequently gauge a man's patience by delaying responses, introducing minor annoyances, or igniting drama at inconvenient junctures. This isn't accidental, it's instinctual. Behavioral scientists use stress tests to assess structural integrity, and the same principle applies to human interactions. If a man quickly falters, becomes agitated, or pleads for resolution, he signals an inability to handle pressure. Conversely, maintaining composure and steadiness indicates resilience. The curious outcome is that while a woman might find your calmness irksome in the moment, she ultimately feels more secure and drawn to you later. Secondly, they shift accountability. When issues arise, some women contort the situation to make the man feel responsible. This can be as minor as being late and remarking, "You should have reminded me." Psychologists label this projection, a defense mechanism where individuals project their own flaws onto others. Men who readily accept blame fall into her influence, revealing vulnerability. True leaders don't engage in perpetual defense, they redirect. A man who calmly states, "We'll resolve this, but your contribution is essential," demonstrates equilibrium. Women subconsciously respect men who reject unwarranted blame, as it signifies strength and clarity amidst chaos. Thirdly, they engage in silent treatment maneuvers. The silent treatment isn't solely an expression of anger, it's a power play. By withdrawing verbally, she compels you to react, apologize, or pursue her. In psychological terms, this is termed withdrawal reinforcement, as the individual who breaks the silence typically relinquishes power. If you panic and over-apologize, she perceives you as easily swayed. However, if you permit the silence to persist without wavering, her tactic backfires. She realizes her silence holds no sway over you. This composed resistance often surprises women, as most men succumb to silence. Remaining unyielding demonstrates a strength that commands respect without a word. Fourthly, they manipulate emotional tempo. Women sometimes exhibit rapid mood fluctuations, transitioning from amiable to upset in an instant. This isn't always calculated manipulation, it's an intrinsic test. Psychological principles of emotional contagion suggest that humans tend to mirror the emotions of those around them. If you mirror her emotional swings, she knows she's in control. But if you maintain your equilibrium, unaffected by her emotional turbulence, she recognizes the superiority of your internal framework. Imagine a ship's captain navigating rough seas. If he panics as the waves swell, confidence erodes. If he remains calm, the crew feels secure. Your steadfastness amidst her mood swings is a testament to intrinsic leadership, requiring no overt assertion. Fifthly, they employ public pressure tactics. In social settings, a woman might lightly jest at your expense, interject, or place you in an awkward spotlight. This isn't always malicious. It's a test of your social standing. Studies of primate hierarchies reveal that dominance isn't solely about physical prowess, but also about maintaining composure under collective observation. If you become defensive, you appear flustered. If you respond with humor, playfulness, or charm, you pass the test. Women are aware of the social implications of these moments, using them to assess your ability to perform under scrutiny. Your capacity to remain centered earns unspoken admiration. Sixthly, they question your masculine identity. She might make remarks such as, "A real man would," or "You're too soft." This isn't about her specific definition of masculinity, but rather your reaction to being challenged. In behavioral economics, identity pressure compels conformity due to the fear of social exclusion. Insecure men overcompensate by defending their manhood. Strong men, however, transcend the need for explanation. Their actions speak for themselves. By calmly disregarding the provocation or deflecting it with wit, you demonstrate that your masculinity requires no external validation. This unshakable self-assurance is uncommon and signals that you operate by your own principles. Seventhly, they employ the shifting goalpost. At times, women alter the criteria mid-interaction. Initially, she might express a desire for consistency, only to later crave excitement. While confusing for men, this serves as a test. In negotiation, this is known as demand fluctuation, designed to gauge the other party's commitment. If you frantically adapt, she knows she holds sway. However, if you calmly uphold your standards and refuse to seek her approval, you assert your authority. The reality is that women respect men who are unyielding to ever-changing demands, as it signifies self-worth prioritized over appeasement. Eighthly, they utilize selective memory. A woman might conveniently forget details that support your position while emphasizing any missteps. For instance, she may overlook your numerous successes but highlight a single failure. Psychologists refer to this as confirmation bias, where individuals recall information that validates their viewpoint. Men who vehemently strive to remind her of their accomplishments fall into her narrative, appearing needy. Conversely, refusing to engage in memory contests and calmly stating, "I am aware of my actions," demonstrates self-assurance. Though she may not explicitly acknowledge it, women are drawn to men who don't require validation for their past deeds. Ninthly, they test through inducing jealousy. Women sometimes mention other men, whether acquaintances, colleagues, or strangers, to observe your reaction. While not always a conscious act, it's an age-old tactic. Studies in animal behavior show that rivals are introduced to observe which males maintain their ground and which retreat. If you exhibit insecurity or panic, you fail. However, if you remain composed, perhaps even amused, you demonstrate confidence in the face of perceived competition. Women might feign annoyance at your composure, but in reality, it instills a sense of security. The man who remains unflustered by potential threats appears most formidable in genuine challenges. Tenthly, they control the tempo. She might dictate the pace of your interactions. expecting immediate, lengthy text responses, or initiating arguments when it suits her. In strategic engagements, controlling the rhythm is paramount. A combatant who dictates the pace typically prevails. If you acquiesce to her timing, she wields power. However, if you determine when to engage, when to communicate, and when to withdraw, you maintain the dominant position. This isn't about emotional detachment. It's about refusing to operate on someone else's schedule. Women subtly assess whether you are reactive or autonomous. Leaders invariably set the pace. 11thly, they use the comparison stratagem. A woman might casually contrast you with another man, remarking, for instance, "He's so driven," or "He always takes initiative." Ostensibly, an innocent observation, it's a subtle attempt to seize control. In sports psychology, comparisons often diminish performance as the mind shifts from proactive engagement to reactive defense. If you defend yourself, you concede to her frame of reference. The assertive response is to acknowledge with a smile, a shrug, or to playfully subvert the comparison, thereby reinforcing that her metrics do not define your worth. 12thly, they redefine masculinity. She might utter phrases like, "A real man would," or "A strong man always," as a means to pressure you into conforming to her expectations. This is a potent manipulation as it taps into identity. Research in behavioral economics indicates that individuals are more inclined to comply when their identity is challenged. Defending yourself ensnares you. Calmly embodying your own definition without justification allows you to retain your position. Women respect men who resist external dictates regarding their masculinity. The trap lies in explanation. The power resides in embodiment. 13thly, they withhold approval. She might withdraw communication or feign disinterest after you've taken a bold step, observing if you will seek her acknowledgement. This mirrors the technique casinos employ with slot machines, where intermittent rewards sustain engagement. If you become dependent on her validation, you are ensnared within her framework. However, if you remain steadfast and project self-worth independent of her approval, the dynamic shifts. The paradox is that when you cease to pursue her signals, she becomes more inclined to offer them. Approval then becomes a reward, not a constraint. 14thly, they reframe conflict. She might twist arguments to cast you as the antagonist, even if she initiated the dispute. This psychological phenomenon is known as projection. The peril lies in your tendency to defend yourself, thereby accepting her narrative. Legal professionals employ this by deflecting blame onto the opposition, diverting attention from the original issue. Pursuing vindication leads to defeat. The strong approach involves sidestepping defense and calmly rejecting the imposed narrative. Do not contest her story. Refuse to inhabit it. By maintaining your composure, you demonstrate her inability to control the discourse through blame. 15thly, they dictate timing. She might determine when conversations occur, when disagreements commence, or when attention is allocated. For example, she might raise an issue just before bedtime or before your workday, deliberately disrupting your equilibrium. Control over timing is a strategic maneuver employed in conflict and politics. Leaders strike when adversaries are most vulnerable. If you yield to her timing, you cede control over your responses. A man who calmly states, "We'll discuss this later," asserts his leadership. The power lies not in hastening to accommodate her schedule, but in establishing your own rhythm of engagement. 16thly, they weaponize compliments. At times, she may offer praise designed to subtly entrap you. For instance, she might say, "I adore how kind you are. You'd never harm anyone." While initially pleasing, this is a subtle snare. Asserting yourself now risks forfeiting this positive affirmation. Social psychologists call this labeling, where individuals unconsciously conform to imposed descriptions. Accepting such platitudes without critical thought places you within her framework. The key is to receive compliments lightly and not allow them to define your identity. True strength lies in being receptive to praise without being constrained by it. 17thly, they make you prove yourself. She might pose leading questions or challenge your accounts in a manner that compels you to offer justifications. For example, if you mention owning a business, she might respond with, "But is it truly thriving?" This isn't mere curiosity, it's a test of dominance. In interrogation techniques, this is known as forced disclosure, where subjects reveal information they would typically withhold. The danger is excessive self-explanation. Strong individuals don't prove, they demonstrate through their actions. When you respond with a calm shrug or a concise answer, foregoing defense, you signal that you are not operating within her parameters. Excessive justification is disguised subservience. 18thly, they shape your emotions. She might attempt to draw you into moods she cultivates. If she's angry, she desires your anger in return. If she's anxious, she seeks your shared apprehension. Emotional contagion is a well-established psychological phenomenon, illustrating how individuals tend to adopt the emotions of those around them. Women test men to ascertain their ability to remain stable amidst turmoil. If you immediately mirror her emotions, you fall within her influence. However, if you maintain a calm and centered demeanor, her emotions tend to align with yours. The leader in any group is the one who establishes the emotional tone. not the one who imitates. 19thly, they engage in public framing maneuvers. In the presence of others, she might make lighthearted jokes at your expense, gauge your reaction, or project an image of leadership. This represents a form of social dominance play. In primate studies, the group gravitates towards the individual who exhibits the most confidence under scrutiny. If you become overly defensive, you appear unsettled. If you respond with playful banter and calmly redirect, you retain control. Women understand the significance of group dynamics, hence their tendency to test you in public settings. The focus isn't on the joke itself, but on who garners respect from the group afterward. 20thly, they dictate normalcy. She may attempt to normalize behaviors that benefit her agenda. For instance, she might assert that constant texting between couples is normal, or that password sharing is standard practice. These are not objective facts, but rather attempts to establish her framework as the definitive standard. In social psychology, this is referred to as norm setting, where individuals comply not due to rules, but due to their perception of what is considered typical. If you accept her notion of normalcy without critical thought, you are subsumed within her perspective. A discerning man questions the definition of normalcy and establishes his own. True authority stems from self-definition, not adherence to another's script.